A new State Department program at FSCJ will give local students a chance to impact global diplomacy. It's called the Diplomacy Lab. It's one of more than 60 at colleges around the country, but it's just the third in Florida. And I'm joined now by two faculty guides for the school's new Diplomacy Lab. Julia Montgomery, FSCJ Professor of Art and Design, welcome.
Hello.
And Dr. Daniel Cronrath, a familiar face and voice on the station, Professor of Political Science at FSCJ, welcome.
Hi, Ann. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So this sounds so cool. How did FSCJ land this program, and when does it get rolling?
Julia?
All right. Well, we actually were lucky enough to have a colleague at FSCJ provide this program to us. She is currently working at the State Department as well as with FSCJ. And when she found out about Diplomacy Lab, she thought it would be the perfect fit. So she brought it to us and kind of gave us courses in understanding what it was and what we were going to be needing to do with our students. And from there, we just kind of hit the ground running.
And so what is it, and what are you going to need to do with your students?
So Diplomacy Lab is basically a project brought on by the State Department to connect both the private and public sector. And so essentially students are given real-world projects from the State Department. And these projects, they're on a variety of subjects. So they can be from like democracy initiatives to voting rights to climate change to marketing, which is what I'm doing. But essentially, students are given these projects. They work with the State Department and a faculty supervising them throughout. And at the end of it, they get to put the State Department as their client on their resume. So it's a really big deal for our students.
That's extraordinary. And Daniel, how is it that the school, do you have to apply? Do you have to compete in order to get to be one of these Diplomacy Lab locations?
Yes, we applied. It's important, for folks to realize that FSCJ, we're the first open access or community college in the United States, has been selected for this program. Julia and I had an opportunity to travel with some other FSCJ folks up to Washington, D.C. and see these student presentations this year in preparation for our students maybe going next year. Just the creativity, the idea of FSCJ being in the room with groups from Johns Hopkins, from American University, from George Washington University, really puts our institution in an elite company. And our students are going to be up for the task.
That's very prestigious. And the projects are really interesting. So I was looking through a list of them, and they are, as you said, so varied, including, and a lot of them seem to focus on social media and ways that students can help the State Department by researching, for instance, in Jamaica, they're trying to reduce scams that also impact U.S. citizens. And so, how to communicate with people there, perhaps younger people there that are being drawn into the criminal underworld. It's sort of but there's also projects all over the world that they're asking local students to help research and presumably provide some answers.
Right. And programmatically, how it works is the State Department will put out opportunities for colleges to bid on those projects. So, for example, my project, which is called V is for Voting, we're going to be working to develop an interactive tool for officers who are working in Central America to learn more about the election systems where they're going to be stationed. Obviously, coming from the United States with a federal form of government and with our own unique election style with the Electoral College and other elements, it's going to be very, very different where they're going. So our students will do the research, they'll put together, and then they will have a tool that they can use in perpetuity in the field to provide them with information about where they're going to be working for the United States.
So the project list comes from the State Department. The teachers, if they're interested, bid, and if they're fortunate, they win the project. Their students can then participate. And so students get credit for this? Is it a semester long, or does the project pass from class to class?
So that really depends on the institution, on the instructor. For me personally, it is a course. So I teach in the digital media program, and I teach at both the associate's and bachelor's level. And so this particular course is a bachelor's level course called Digital Media Creative Problem Solving. And the learning outcomes just happen to align perfectly with the project that we're working on.
What is the project?
So we're going to be essentially researching the marketing and branding for an area of the State Department called American Spaces. And American Spaces are throughout the world. They can be hosted in embassies or freestanding. There's something like over 600 spaces throughout the world, but they provide education to foreigners on the American way of life. So they provide classes in learning English, they provide classes in learning our civic structure, skill-based classes on, different areas of employment, and also free internet access and open internet access in locations that don't always offer that. So we are going to be researching those spaces, the regions in which they are currently held, and then providing an audit and report on the branding, as well as students are going to be rebranding the marketing, the logo, and all that for American Spaces.
Fascinating. So that's a semester-long project?
Yes, it is.
And how many credits do students get for that?
So they get 3 credits.
Wow, that's really interesting. And so do you expect other teachers at the school, other professors are going to be seeking to bid on these other projects? I mean, there's a whole long list of projects that people can bid on. So you're the first two?
Yes. And we expect that there's going to be bids which are appropriate for a lot of our different programs at FSCJ, not just American government or international relations, but our workforce programs, that we can try to find a way to perform projects in the field that will help meet our students where they're at and give them the opportunity in our AS programs and our BAS programs like Julia teaches in. I think really the sky is the limit. I think to be able to attend an affordable institution like FSCJ and yet have the opportunity to have this on your resume moving forward. The other thing I would stress too is that a lot of the people now who are working for a diplomacy lab or working for the State Department were in the diplomacy lab at one point. This is for students looking for a career to work for the Department of State. This can be a direct jumping point. If you wanted to live your life overseas, serving your country in some sort of capacity, the diplomacy lab would be an on-ramp for that.
And so is this for a certain level of student? I mean, some people come and take classes just to learn more about a subject at FSCJ and maybe aren't full-time students. Who's eligible, and do you have to be a certain, level of, certain year?
For me personally, I wanted my bachelor's students to do it because they're interested in this. They're wanting experiential learning, especially at that level where the class is offered. And this is definitely an experiential learning experience. I think I said experience twice there. So I think in terms of that student population, it's perfect. But it does depend because students can work in groups. You can, in some universities and colleges, they actually have diplomacy lab departments where it's more student focused and run. So it is dependent upon the school.
But it's not like you have to be a senior or...
No, you just have to be, signing up for a class that's eventually going to be offering it. A lot of these questions, Anne, are like questions that we've been asking ourselves too.
Yes.
Sometimes when you're really excited for something, here's a little, view behind the scenes. Sometimes teachers have to figure things out as we go along,
right.
and we try to invent these things and then integrate them into our classroom. But I think it's been the intention from the institution immediately to have these opportunities open to any one of our students. It's not based upon GPA. It's not based upon pre-qualification. If you're a student at FSCJ, if you're pursuing your AA, in the future, hopefully you'll be able to look at the course schedule, recognize Diplomacy Lab as being part of that course, and give yourself an opportunity to by the way, there's no guarantee that the bid will be accepted. But like, for example, in my case, the individual who put out our bid, there were 3 institutions that were selected. So understand it's us, American University, and Johns Hopkins. I mean, that's the company that our students are going to be keeping with students from those other institutions. It's really an amazing opportunity.
It really is an extraordinary program.
It is. It absolutely
It must be very exciting.
Yeah.
We are.
Well, thanks so much for coming on to talk to us about it today. Is there a way that people could find more information if they wanted to?
I know we have a Diplomacy Lab website available. Honestly, if you just Google FSCJ Diplomacy Lab, it will take you directly to the site. So that's one way where you can learn a little bit about it.
And then there'll also be a link on there to the Department of State's Diplomacy Lab website where folks can peruse and see what the various opportunities are out there, which, again, this is all in the service of our individuals who are working for the United States and the Department of State. It's making their jobs easier through our classrooms.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Julia Dearriba-Mongomery and Dr. Daniel Cronrath. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you so much.